The Center, with your host, DC Radical One.
Greetings, Black family, and welcome to On the Wake Up Radio. And greetings to those of you who are not family. And lastly, but not least, greetings to our enemies, because I know some of you are out there listening. For those of you who are not familiar with On the Wake Up Radio, you can check us out on iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and iHeartRadio at On the Wake Up Radio. And you can check us out at otwtube.com. That's otwtube.com. So, as well as on the wakeupradio.com, if I'm not mistaken, as I do housekeeping. As we get started tonight, let's see who we have in the building. BB4ODA, straight black pride to straight black Sa. BB4ODA, brother, you got ripped off. Like a unofficial co-producer at this point. BB4ODA, straight black pride to brother Elijah. BB4ODA to sister Najee. And that's everyone I see in the chat, although I saw more people earlier. So y'all know I always tell y'all what my inspiration is. And BB4ODA, straight black pride to brother Kevin. My inspiration tonight was Tupac Amaru Shakur. I don't even remember what song it is, but Tupac has a line that says, "They got money for war, but can't feed the poor." So that was the inspiration for this title. Because as I was scanning the news, you know, that's like literally what I saw. Like, that's literally the news. So I was like, you know what? Let's talk about it. Because a lot of people are struggling in the Biden economy. That's just a fact. Don't let them gaslight you into thinking something else. And yet, you know, there's always money to ship somewhere else. I have talked about, of course, previously the border wars, as I call it, where the current administration refuses to spend appropriate resources to secure the southern border. But the United States Congress has decided that they have able to come together across party lines to send billions of dollars to the Ukraine and Israel. So that is going to be tonight's discussion. It's going to be the foundation of tonight's discussion. And then that will lead us into some other things. So I'm going to give a few more people a few more minutes to come in. Looks like we got a kind of late arriving crowd. Or maybe people aren't interested in the subject at hand. You can never know. I would like to thank everybody who's been spreading the word about the channel. The subscribers are just steadily creeping up incrementally. And you know, our motto here is get fully monetized or get deleted trying. And we're ever closer to both of those things, as you know, because I'm always close to getting deleted off of all my social media, but we are marching ever closer to being monetized. So I appreciate and thank everyone who is spread the word, who shared the video, who told people to tune in, who tuned in themselves. Also, make sure that you're still subscribed, because YouTube has a habit of unsubscribing people. Also, this Saturday, and I got to put it out on Instagram, but the goal is still this Saturday night to do a panel discussion on Black love and relationship featuring the sisters. If there's any sister here that would like to be a part of that, let me know. I actually do have an age range in mind, but I haven't said that publicly, but I will tomorrow. I'll go ahead and put that out tomorrow. Stop bojangling, as they say. So let us get started with tonight's discussion. And I'm trying to figure out where I want to start. So let us see. I think I'm going to start with, I'm going to start with the money. For those who haven't been paying attention, that's what we're going to go with. By the way, y'all, I didn't even ask what music was. Are they good? Too high, too low. Y'all let me know. Sometimes it's hard to tell. But I set them at the levels they normally at. But I notice each song kind of gets a different vibe. So let us go with our first article. It says Senate advances Ukraine aid, Israel funding, and TikTok ban. It's kind of weird that all those things were put together. Now you're going to ask me, okay, why are all those things together? Well, who the Israel funding benefits is obvious. It's not so obvious, but the Ukraine aid also benefits the same people. And weirdly enough, the people that seem to want the TikTok ban is also the same people. Those of you all who are new here, you might have to watch some old videos to catch up. Those of you all who've been here before, you already know who I'm talking about. But let's take a look at this. It says the Senate voted Tuesday to advance a $95 billion, that's with a B, that's 1,000 million, aid package to provide critical aid to Ukraine and a provision that could lead to a nationwide ban on TikTok. Remind me to do a little further investigation so I can do a radical report on the TikTok ban and what's really behind that, because there's a couple of things behind that. But anyway, the vote of 80 to 19 indicates the legislation, has enough support to clear the Senate in a final vote, which would come as soon as tonight, and then head to President Joe Biden's desk to be signed into law. The package, which passed the House on Saturday, includes $60 billion in aid to Ukraine that President Volodymyr Zelensky said would give his country a chance at victory against Russia. Now let's stop right here. Now, one of my previous live streams, I showed a map, comparing Ukraine to Russia. And I didn't break out like the population numbers and the actual army numbers, and I didn't go into all that. I just wanted to show you a map to show you the size differential of the countries, and the population differentials are generally, indicative of the size differential, right? So the idea that you're just going to pour some money into this country and they're going to defeat Russia is absolutely ridiculous, right? I said it then, I'm going to say it now. That's just a complete and utter lie. I have no other way to put it. Just got to say it straight into the point. Just a lie. Period in discussion. Now, it includes $26 billion in aid to Israel, and I believe, I was wrong. I read this earlier, but I was wrong. $26 billion in aid to Israel and humanitarian relief in Gaza, in addition to $8 billion for security in Taiwan and the Indo-Pacific. Now let's stop right here. No disrespect to any Taiwanese people here, but we're going to be realistic here from a geopolitical perspective. If China decides that they want to take over Taiwan, and in fact, even if they decide they want to take over Taiwan and Japan, short of all-out nuclear war, the United States can do nothing. Yeah, like we have to stop the lies here, right? That the United States can just single-handedly defeat everybody. Because if you really listen to people talk about the U.S. military, and when they start sending money all over the world and saying the U.S. has to protect democracy and this and that, yada yada and blah blah blah, you will start buying into the illusion that America is basically like God and can be everywhere all the time and defeat all foes. That's just a lie. There are a billion people in China. They got a lot of angry men who are not getting married because the women over there acting weird and like some weird stuff happening there, and that's why they leaving the country and going to Africa and reproducing and all that. So it's a lot of stuff going on, right? If you take a percentage of those billion people and send them off to fight and die, you're helping China, right? It's just less mouths to feed, and it help further lock in the people to their government. So this idea that you're going to spend some money for Taiwan and that's just going to protect Taiwan from China. No, China just doesn't want to really go through the headache because the possibility that thing could go into all-out war, as far as nuclear. But if they want to just militarily take Taiwan, there's nothing the U.S. can do about that. Like somebody, I haven't heard anybody just state this. It's relatively obvious, but no one seems to state it. If China wants to just bum rush and take over Taiwan, which for a long time was a part of China, and even Japan was a long time enemy of China, show them nuclear weapons, there's nothing they can do. Both of them together can't do nothing. And it's just plain and simple, right? So I'm just laying that out there so we can deal with reality. Peace to the integrative school psychologist. Always good to see you here, sister. Right? So let me get back to the article. And it would give TikTok's China-based parent company 9 months, which the president could extend to a year, to sell the popular social media platform or be banned in the US. That puts TikTok closer than ever to a prohibition while ensuring that it won't be banned until after the 2024 election. The timing of that is interesting. I'm not sure what that's about. Senators on Tuesday afternoon will discuss whether they can reach a deal quickly to vote to give the final passage to the bill later in the day, on whether to wait until Wednesday to approve. So as we see, this is something that's going on, like literally as I'm speaking to you all. The finish line is now in sight, said Chuck Schumer of New York, said in a statement over the weekend, saying the bill's passage will be a watershed moment for the quote-unquote defense of democracy. Now, again, let's stop right here. He just said this would be a watershed moment for the defense of democracy, right? Now, in Israel right now, a group of people who did not live there until 1948 is basically engineering a complete genocide of the people that were there before they got there. And they have virtually no rights. Many people have called it an apartheid state. And you're going to fund that continued genocide and claim you're aiding democracy. Just take all the time that you need to process the information that I've given you. Like we're in the world of 1984 now, with newspeak, where people say stuff and it's the opposite of reality, and they just expect you to just accept it. Because that's a ridiculous statement. How are you defending democracy while aiding and abetting genocide, and then you throw in a few bucks to so-called aid relief, when I talked about earlier and showed earlier them blowing up relief people? The Israeli government, the IDF, literally blowing up people whose sole job is to bring food and resources to people in distress. They got a big giant sign on their car that says food relief, don't shoot. Right? And they sent the drones out and obliterated those people. And your government, the United States government, literally 1 week after you just got economically strong-armed in the name of taxes, as soon as the tax money ain't even all counted yet. They took the money that you sent in, because I did my taxes early. So the money that you sent in, 2 weeks ago, they took that money and immediately started shipping it to Israel and the Ukraine. Y'all mad yet or not? So you are aiding and abetting in war crimes because your hard-earned money, where you got to go out here and work 2 jobs, we'll get to that later, that they take and steal the money from you and give it to a so-called ally that does nothing for the United States except get in wars and fight with people and take money, right? And then what happens is people start hating America, start saying death to America. And then you go out here and want to travel and go to some other country and mess around and get blown up because your tax money went to spend to help so-called U.S. ally that does nothing for America. But let me get back to the article. Now, 2 months ago, the Senate voted 70-29 to pass a similar $95 billion foreign aid package, but without the TikTok provision. Still, there are signs that the Senate is receptive to the TikTok ban bill, which the House revised. Senator Maria Cantwell, a Democrat from the state of Washington, the chair of the Commerce Committee, endorsed the new bill, saying she's very happy with the extended window for TikTok to be sold. Now, I'm just going to say, if they force TikTok to be sold from its parent company, I'll give y'all one guess, just one, for what group of people are going to buy that. Just the ethnic identity of the people who are going to purchase it. An earlier House passed bill would have given the parent company 6 months to sell TikTok. Cantwell noted that she recommends the change. I support the updated legislation. Advocates for banning the app in the U.S. expressed concern about TikTok's relationship to ByteDance, a company based in Beijing, saying Americans' data could, under Chinese law, be accessed by China's government, a prospect that TikTok has downplayed, saying its headquarters are in Singapore and Los Angeles. They also claim that TikTok could manipulate the algorithm to advance propaganda. Now let's stop right here. This data issue, we're going to get to that too. And it's very interesting because I didn't really expect for this stuff to be interrelated as it's going to be as we go through these articles tonight. It's going to be, the dots are going to connect themselves on this one. Now, it says a TikTok spokesperson responded to the House's vote over the weekend by saying, it is unfortunate that the House of Representatives is using the cover of important foreign and humanitarian assistance to once again jam through a ban bill that would trample the free speech rights of 170 million Americans, devastate 7 million businesses, and shutter a platform that contributes $24 billion to the U.S. economy. Interesting. So he had that study ready. A source within TikTok said that the memo sent after the House passed a bill that once Biden signs it into law, it will move to the courts for a legal challenge. Senator Mike Lee of Utah is lobbying his colleagues to reject the package, saying 41 senators could join to filibuster. The $95 billion bill doesn't have to pass. It only takes 41 senators to stop it, Lee wrote on X. There are 49 Republicans in the Senate, more than enough. Where do your senators stand? Well, we will see tonight whether or not they choose to filibuster it. But it seems like a deal has been made from what I've been watching where the Democrats have supported the bill that they don't like in order to get the Republicans to support the bill that they don't like. And they, in essence, made a deal with the devil. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do some review, because some of you will probably think, well, you know what, DC, you're saying these bills are passed, and you're saying that American people don't really like these bills being passed because they're nothing happening for the American people, and the economy's kind of messed up, and interest rates are through the roof, and the prices of food is through the roof, and people got to work 2 jobs. And so how could the senators support this stuff, and why are they sending my tax paying dollars overseas, and what's really going on? Now, I would normally sit here and be long-winded and filibuster and tell you what's going on, but no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to bring our expert back to the witness stand, and she's going to tell us how in the world this thing really works as far as Congress goes, right? Because what's the point of me telling you when we have an expert? So we're going to bring our expert again, Dr. Cynthia McKinney, to tell us how this whole Congress thing works.
Congress at that time had a pledge. They were given a pledge to sign. And I was new on the scene. And so the pledge had Jerusalem as the capital city, the military superiority of Israel.
American Congress people have to sign this pledge.
Yes, you sign the pledge. If you don't sign the pledge, you don't get money. So, for example, it was almost like water torture for me. My parents observed this. I would get a call, and the person on the other end of the phone would say, I want to do a fundraiser for you. And then we would get into the planning. I would get really excited because, of course, you have to have money in order to run a campaign. And then 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the planning, they would say, did you sign the pledge? And then I would say, no, I didn't sign the pledge. And then my fundraiser would go kaput. I made it public. This probably nobody had said anything about it. But I made it public, and then, the excuse was, well, those were just overzealous advocates for Israel. So then the tactic changed. And but this is what is done for 535 members of the United States Congress. 100 senators, 435 members of the House of Representatives have to now write a paragraph, which basically says the same thing. So it's not a pledge, but it's a paragraph, and you post it, and, there are these forums you have to go to at the synagogues or whatever. And then, if you don't perform appropriately, then you don't get money to run your campaign. The problem is that it requires an awful lot of money to run a campaign. And whether it's a woman's organization, an environmental organization, people can read about this on the internet if they're interested. If you go to thomas.loc.gov, that is the official United States Congress website. And if you put in the name Gus Savage, because Gus Savage was a black member of Congress who was targeted by the pro-Israel lobby. And he had the foresight to use his position as an incumbent in the House of Representatives to put his experience on the congressional record. For the entire existence of the United States Congress now, people will be able to access his experience. And what he wrote was that it was the Garden Club of New Jersey that gave his opponent $5,000. But it wasn't really the Garden Club of New Jersey. It was the activists who were associated with AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. Well,
Now, thank you to our good doctor, Dr. Cynthia McKinney. She has explained to us how Congress works. To rehash what she said, Congress works like this. You get elected. They say, hey, Congratulations. Glad to see you here. What's your position on Israel? You look at them like they're crazy. Like, I'm here to serve the American people. And they're like, oh yeah, that's quaint. You know, we know. But what's your position on Israel? And you laugh or whatever, and then you tell people that, hey man, I had some people ask me some weird questions. And then they tell you, hey buddy, you better fall in line and sign the pledge. Because if not, you're going to be out of here. And then you find out how the government really works. Now, if that, of course, we know there are 3 branches of government. So someone's thinking, all right, DC, yeah, man, here you go. Yeah, Congress bought and paid for Israel, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. We get it. But it's 3 branches of government. And therefore, we got checks and balances. I know. Some of you are smart. Some of you paid attention in civics class. You know about the 3 branches. You're like, hey, what about the other branch? So, I am going to simply go to the executive branch. I'm going to tell you what the commander-in-chief says. And after we're finished with that, then we're going to see where we are in America, right? So, there's no need for me to tell you. I'm going to let the commander-in-chief tell you for itself.
I want you to be a Zionist, and I'm a Zionist. I got in trouble, got criticized very badly by the southern part of my state and some of the southern parts of the country when 35 years ago I said, you don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist, and I'm a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. Folks, were there no Israel, there wouldn't be a Jew in the world that was safe. Were there no Israel. I make no bones about it. I've had my differences with some Israeli leadership. I've known Bibi for now 51 years. He has a picture on his desk of he and I when he was a young member of the Israeli service here, foreign service. And I was a 32-year-old senator. And I wrote on the top of it, Bibi, I love you, but I don't agree with a damn thing you had to say. It's about the same today. I love him.
So if there's any questions about where our president stands, he said he's known the current leader of Israel for as longer than I've been alive. And so if there's any question of where his loyalties lie, before they straight back pride, Brother Tony. Right? His loyalties don't lie with the United States. He's been saying I'm a Zionist since he was, what do you say, 35 years? What is that? That's the 80s? If you go back 25 years, that's 1999. So he's been saying he's a Zionist since the 80s. Think about that. Like since Miami Vice was on TV. Since, like, I guess the first Bush, or maybe when Reagan was in office. Greetings to Brother Jimmy. So if there's any doubt about who runs the country, we brought 2 witnesses, Dr. McKinney, who told you how Congress is run. That's 1/3. The president of the United States has been saying he's a Zionist before almost everybody in this chat was alive. That's 2/3 of your government right there. It don't even matter what the other third is doing. But we're going to get to that later. Right? So when you see these bills and you see this money and you see all this stuff going over into these other places and 60 billion here, 25 there, 8-10 billion there, and then I'm going to show you how much they're spending to help Americans who are in trouble. You know what's going on. You have a complete understanding right? Now, that was the Senate vote. Now, I said the title of this is They Got Money for War, which we see approximately, maybe not the whole 95 bill, but we just gonna round it up because I'm sure there's some other hidden money in here somewhere. Approximately 100 bill for war, but they can't feed the poor. All right, DC, y'all like, all right, what up? You know they can't feed the poor. Let's see. This is from the U.S. Census. Nearly 327,000 in U.S. lived in emergency and transitional shelters. New survey data provides demographic profile of population experiencing homelessness who live in emergency and transitional shelters. Now, stop right here. Understand, this is not all the homeless people in America. It's just the homeless people that went to the shelter. The vast majority of homeless people have horror stories about living in shelters, so they don't want to go to shelters. You like, DC, how do you know? Because I talked to them. Yes, for years. I talked to these people. Some of these people are unwell mentally. Some of these people have drug problems. Some of these people are completely lucid and very intelligent. And after having a conversation with them, you're like, what happened? How's this person out here? Right? So, in fact, the situation in DC started getting so bad, right? So quick that I literally, because I saw something that I had not seen. I started to see a lot of young people, and I mean young, I'm talking about like late teens, early 20s, homeless in downtown DC. I was like, what the heck is going on? This is right before the pandemic. And I said that I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go out here and interview these people because I need to understand what's going on. And then pandemic, that changed everything. So back to this information. And again, this U.S. Census says nearly 327,000 people in the United States experiencing homelessness live in shelters. A small proportion of the U.S. population from 2018 to 2022, but higher than from 2013 to 2017, which means the problem is getting worse. From 2013 to 2017, ACS, the previous 5 years with no overlapping years, showed that there were approximately 267,000 people, or 0.08 of U.S. population, in shelters during that time. Among the shelter population 16 and over experiencing homelessness, nearly 15% were unemployed, and an additional 61% were not in the labor force. So that means these people, the vast majority of people, they don't even have any prospects for work or anything like that, because usually that comes from the fact that they've been experiencing homelessness for so long, they don't have a way to be contacted. It's just a lot of stuff going on, right? When you fall into that state and it's hard to get out because it's certain stuff you gotta have just to be able to get a job nowadays. One of them is internet access, right? Most of the time. Like literally, I remember, man, it's been some years ago, 15 years ago, maybe. I just remember the transition. It was at least 15 years ago, where you would like go and just ask a place, are they hiring or whatever? Like if you needed something extra or you just needed something right then and there. And I remember when they started pointing you to the computer, you're like, wait, what's that for? You know what I'm saying? You expect them to hand you some paper. And that ended maybe nearly 20 years ago now, So, I mean, that just shows how that situation can go. Now, it says a change in the number of people experiencing homelessness and living in shelters could be due to a change in economic circumstances. I don't know why there's a could be here, but whatever. Or resources devoted to shelters, or a combination of both. Group quarters are places owned and managed by an entity or organization providing housing and or services for the residents, where people live or stay in a group arrangement. They consist of institutional residents primarily not eligible, able to, or likely to participate in the labor force, and non-institutional residents primarily eligible, able, or likely to participate in labor force facilities. Non-institutional group quarters include places like college dorms and military housing and other non-institutional facilities. Now, here's the thing, right? When we look at this, we also are not looking at the number of people who are incarcerated, who also are not part of the economy and have been taken out of the labor force and taken out of society. That's a whole nother demographic and a whole nother thing we can talk about. Now, you're going to be like, okay, but yeah, we know it's homelessness here, and that's a very small percentage, right? But when you start looking at it, that was just a measurement of people in shelters. But when you start looking at the other data and statistics, says though the nation's economy has impressively rebounded from the brief pandemic recession, not all Americans are prospering. One harsh indicator was a significant jump in homelessness over the last year. According to Department of Housing and Urban Development, a record number of people are currently unhoused in the U.S. Several factors are driving this increase, such as rising housing costs, surging immigration, and the end of COVID relief programs. HUD's annual homelessness assessment report found that more than 650,000 people in America lack permanent shelters. That represents the most documented homeless individuals since the inaugural report in 2007 and reflects a 12% increase over 2022. Now, understand, right, as we get ready to go through these data and statistics, the sheer, the nature of homelessness makes it difficult to measure. So every measurement that you see in every document that I'm gonna go through will undercount. Like, you could basically double everything that they say, right? Because people aren't actually going out here and tracking people down and stopping people that are pushing their cart or whatever they're doing and saying, hey, it's obvious you're homeless. What's your name? So I can write it down and mark it. Like that, it doesn't work that way. Okay. So all these numbers, these estimates are way below and also they're way below because they don't want to see how horrible it is. Let's be realistic. If you go to Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Washington, D.C., and those are the major places I know where it's just ridiculously obvious that, hey, something's wrong here. Those places, it's obvious that the economy in America is not working for the people. Because for all the homeless people you see, think about all the people who are just struggling and hanging on. Think about all the people you don't see because they're living in their car. That's a thing that there's a rise in that in DC, where people are working, going to work every day, but they're living in their car, but they're going to work every day. They work every day, right? They're working to be able to live in their car. No one talks about that, but if you talk to people, that's been a thing. So, we're just gonna look at it. It says 653,104 people experienced homelessness in 2023. 111,620 children were without homes in America last year. Let's stop right there. A country that can afford to send $95 billion abroad cannot afford to find a way for over 100,000 children to not be homeless. Let's take all the time you need. Like those of you who are voters, is this what you vote for? Is this what you advocate? Are our representatives, quote unquote, the quotes on our, are they representing the people? Is this what American people are about? Blowing up people that they don't know and not helping people that they might know. Right? Do we ever even think about this stuff? Now it says homelessness has increased in 41 states between 2022 and 2023, with New Hampshire, New Mexico, and New York having the highest percentage increases. If you live somewhere with a new, you might want to move somewhere new, apparently. It says New York, Vermont, and Oregon had the highest per capita rates of homelessness in 2023. Now, here's the thing about this that's crazy to me. Vermont has a very small population, and Oregon has a very small population. So they don't even have no people and have the highest rates of homelessness, mean that the people you got is, struggling, which is crazy because you don't have nobody even living there. There's now more than one half of America's homeless individuals reside in the nation's 50 largest cities. As I said, New York and Los Angeles alone contain 1/4 of the homeless people, which, if you ever seen Skid Row in LA, that's not telling you nothing. Now, this is what's crazy. This shows you how bad it is. Every ethnic group endured an increase in homelessness last year. Everybody. So everybody should be mad, because that means everybody could be headed out the door. And another thing, I didn't get into this, but we're seeing this squatter thing happening now, right? In different places around the country. The more people become homeless, the more somebody's gonna try to kick in your door and live in your house with or without you. So for those who are like, man, why are you rambling on and on about this homelessness stuff? Because as the homelessness thing is happening, the squatter thing is happening at the same time. And eventually you're going to have to mess around and have that gauge ready for somebody trying to kick in your door because it's wintertime and they cold and they ain't got nowhere to go. So that's why we're talking about it. Now, the Asian community experienced the most significant percentage increase, a 64% increase in homelessness. Hispanics and Latinos saw the most significant surge in raw numbers, an additional 39,000 people. Well, that's easy to explain because they're homeless people are people that's coming across the border. The Asian thing is interesting because Asian people don't have homeless people. That's very rare. So for them to have an uptick that high, part of it is because probably the initial number is so low, but that really means that something is going on in the economy. Because let me tell you something. In my years of being in DC, I've seen one Asian homeless person. Is a woman. And I remember I went to a new job, and I was talking to some people, and they were saying they said, hey, you leave the office a certain time or whatever, you gotta watch out, it's got a lot of homeless people. And I was like, I'm just looking at it, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. Because I'm like, I ain't worried about these people don't really bother nobody. They like, yeah, no, some, and then they were like, well, some of them got some mental issues. I was like, then I thought about it. I was like, I ain't think about that part. You know what I'm saying? But I was like, I ain't worried about it. And then he's like, yeah, because it's a crazy Asian lady. Blah, 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 blah. I was like, an Asian homeless person? That's what I'm thinking in my mind while this person's talking. And sure enough, not that day, but a few days later, you know, I think I was coming to work, and yeah, this Asian lady this is what's crazy is that like she had designer clothes, but she's just out there and just roaming around, and you know, obviously something happened to her because she like talking to herself, and then she turn around and look at me and turn back around and start yelling something in Chinese. I don't know what she was saying. She probably cussing me out, but I ain't do nothing. And you know, went on around the corner around her business. And I was like, wow. And that was years ago. So as much as they try to tell you how great the Biden economy is, hey, let me tell you something, man. As much business infrastructure as Asian people have in DC, in and around DC, when you start seeing homeless Asian people, things have gone totally off the rails. Right? That, like, you talk about a canary in the coal mine, right? So now you're going to think, all right, you've been beating us over the head with this, but here's the thing. Here's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it, because it leads into something else, right? Because we were talking about the other two branches of government. Supreme Court ruling. With homelessness on the rise, the Supreme Court weighs ban on sleeping outdoors. This is your government at work. We just said that it's a housing problem. We got homelessness ramped up everywhere for everyone, so it ain't missing nobody. And what's the solution? To ban people sleeping outside. Let us read. It says the Supreme Court wrestled with major questions about the growing issue of homelessness on Monday as they considered whether cities can punish people for sleeping outside when shelter space is lacking. It's the most significant case before the High Court in decades on the issue, and comes as record numbers of people are without a permanent place to live in the United States. The case started in the rural Oregon town of Grants Pass, which began fining people $295 for sleeping outside as the cost of housing escalated and tents sprung up in the city's public parks. Now let's stop right here. I can't think of anything goofier than finding people who obviously have no money because they're sleeping outside. But you're just going to find them. I guess you just keep finding them until what? Until you have to arrest them and then they get to sleep inside. I mean, like this is kind of working backwards. You know what I'm saying? You know, like if you live in a place like Oregon where you at least hope the criminals aren't too bad and you won't get violated in jail if you're a man, you're kind of going to be like, you know what, man, just keep finding me till you got to arrest me. I'll be here. You know, winter time's coming. You know, I ain't worried about it. Because these people certainly can't pay the fines. Like this doesn't make any sense to me. Do I know what the solution is? No. But do I know what the solution ain't? Finding people who have no money definitely ain't the solution. I mean, y'all tell me in chat if I'm tripping, right? Because it seems like this is ridiculous. Now, the San Francisco-based Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals struck down the law under its holding that banning camping in places without enough shelter beds amounts to cruel and unusual punishment. Interesting, I hadn't thought of it that way. The justices appeared to be leaning toward a narrow ruling in the case after hearing arguments to show the stark terms of the debate over homelessness in western states like California, which is home to 1/3 of the country's homeless population. All right, hold on. Stop. Here's the thing. A lot of y'all probably haven't heard this, so I'm putting y'all on the game. There had been discussion before the latest polls, which kind of have Trump and Biden even. When Trump was leading and appeared to be surging before like all his cases start coming back to back and they could talk about him being in court endlessly, seemingly, like Biden was trailing. When that discussion was taking place, they were discussing replacing Biden behind closed doors. Guess who the Democrats were discussing replacing Biden with? They were discussing replacing Biden with Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, which has 1/3 of the nation's homeless population. I wish I had the video, but I don't. The Democrats are really considering basically hiring the king of homelessness to replace the senile old man that they're running right now. Cannot make this stuff up. Now, sleeping is a biological necessity. You can't argue with that part. And people may be forced to do it outside if they can't get housing or there's no space in shelters, Justice Sonia Sotomayor said. Man, these are weird times when I'm agreeing with Justice Sotomayor, but what's debatable about that statement? It says, where do we put them if every city, every village, every town lacks compassion and passes a law identical to this? Where are they supposed to sleep? Are they supposed to kill themselves for not sleeping? Solving homelessness is a complicated issue, said Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And obviously, it's confounding the nation's leadership. He questioned whether ticketing people for camping helps if there aren't enough shelter beds to hold everyone, but also raised concerns about federal courts micromanaging policy. Other conservative justices asked how far Eighth Amendment legal protections should extend as city struggles with managing homeless encampments that can be dangerous and unsanitary. How about if there are no public bathroom facilities? Do people have an Eighth Amendment right to utilize nature, the open spaces? Said Justice Neil Gerson. That's an interesting question. There's a lot of things to this. Other public health laws cover that situation, Justice Department Attorney Edwin Needler said. He argued that people shouldn't be punished for sleeping outside, but said the ruling striking down the Grant Pass law should be tossed out because the court didn't do enough to determine if people are involuntarily homeless. Is there such a thing as voluntarily homeless? Like, that only happens. I only know that if you got an RV and you just living in your RV, but then your RV is your home. So I don't understand the concept of voluntary homelessness. Anybody in the chat want to enlighten me on that concept, please? Gorsuch and other justices also raised the possibility that other aspects of state or federal law could help sort through the issue, potentially without setting sweeping new legal precedent. So just reading this, it seems like at least the conservative justices and probably the majority of the court is trying to find a way to not rule on this, which means if you don't rule on it, then what happens is it goes back to the lower court, and the lower court ruling then becomes the law, and it sets a legal precedent. And then when other people see that, then they will follow that, and before you know it, this is what happens everywhere. So that's the important. Now, they referred to the Bill of Rights and the Eighth Amendment. I happen to have the Bill of Rights up because I actually was looking for something else. But let's look up the Eighth Amendment as I try to remember my Roman numerals, because it's been only 100 years. Amendment 8. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel or unusual punishments inflicted. Okay. That's going to be open to some serious interpretation here. By the way, we're going to come back to this Bill of Rights in a minute. But we see that Supreme Court has something on its hands. But in the spirit of this is really a battle between the people who are suffering under the Biden administration and the government who can't seem to find any solutions to anything in this day and time, right? Now, we talked about homelessness, but let's just talk about poverty. Poverty rates, state by state. The poverty in the United States presents a complex mosaic of challenges and disparities as the latest census data reveals. Poverty rates continue to ebb and flow across the 50 states, each grappling with unique economic, social, and demographic factors. We analyze data on poverty rates by state, looking back over the decade to see how rates of poverty have changed. Bear in mind that 10 years ago, the year 2012 witnessed many American housing markets finally hitting rock bottom, though the Great Recession had technically ended in 2009, according to the National Bureau of Economic Research. The early 2010s were a time of terribly slow recovery. Thus, poverty rates in 2012 tended to be higher than today. Right? Now, let's look at some of the rates. It says that places with the 10 lowest rates: New Hampshire, Utah, Colorado, Maryland, Minnesota, New Jersey, Connecticut, state of Washington, and Hawaii. Now, New Hampshire has almost no black people. Utah, almost no black people. Delaware, some. Maryland, without question. Minnesota, a few. New Jersey, a lot. Connecticut, some. Washington, not so much. And Hawaii, I don't think so. Right? Now, all of these, the poverty rate for most of these are 10% and below. Now, when you look at where the poverty is, you're going to see something interesting. Mississippi, the poverty rate nearly 20%, 1 in 5. Louisiana, right behind it. West Virginia, right behind them. New Mexico. I don't even, for a place that has such a low population, I just find that interesting. Arkansas, Kentucky, Alabama. So basically, the entire SEC has a poverty rate over 15%. For those of you who watch college sports. So if you want to know why people in the SEC try so hard in sports, it's because the state they come from, the poverty rate is almost 20%. And they're basically using sports as a way out, right? Then you got Oklahoma, South Carolina, and in between all of that is New York. So in the grand scheme of things, here's what's interesting as I look at it. The Republic of New Africa asked for a certain segment of states, right? And for a provisional government for black people in America. Literally, like 75% of the states that would have made up that territory fall into this poverty rate, ironically enough. So even though more and more people are moving into the South, the money is not there. The only place on here in the South that's in that southern belt that's not suffering this problem is Georgia. We know there's money in Georgia, right? So, think about it. U.S. states with a poverty rate, and the measuring stick for poverty is really kind of deceptive. Who we have coming in? Before they straight black pride, the spirit, mind, character, soul, and greetings to Sister Nefertari. Like their measuring sticks for poverty are really kind of skewed to make things not look as bad as they are. So even though these statistics in these states are horrendous, in reality, they're actually worse. Like any expert that you listen to or study, ask, they'll tell you that the government statistics are usually skewed to make things not as horrible as they are. It doesn't matter what it is. No matter if it's crime statistics, no matter if it's poverty statistics, no matter if it's disease statistics, whatever it is, they skew the data to the best of their ability to make things not as bad as they are. But a 20% poverty rate in a state in the United States of America, allegedly the richest country on earth, is absolutely insane. Now, I wanted to look up, let's see, is this it? Trying to see. Here we go. No, this is not it. That is, that's not it. I thought I had. No, these are child poverty rates. Okay, let's look at this real quick. Child poverty rates, September 2023, the Census Bureau released data on the poverty rate in 2022 compared to historic lows of 2021 of 5.2%, doubled to 12.5%. The sharp spike in child poverty from 2021 to 2022 represents the largest over-year increase in the supplemental poverty measure child poverty rate on record. The historic low in the child poverty rate in 2021 was largely the result of the one-year expansion of the federal child tax credit and the American Rescue Plan. The increase in child poverty in 2022 basically is because of that expiration. So, without that tax credit, the real rate of child poverty is over 10%, 1 in 10 people. I mean, and the government is not doing anything for that. Now, this is what I was looking for. My bad. I had the wrong thing up. The president's budget and homelessness, the impacts of the coming year. Excuse me. Now, mind you, we said that they spent $61 billion for Ukraine, over $20 billion for Israel to commit genocide in Gaza, and $8 billion to Taiwan just to make them feel like China won't run them over or whatever, and some money to take TikTok away from China. Now, somewhere in here, because I'm just trying to find how much the government spent on, okay, it says Congress adopted an appropriation amount for homelessness assistance in last year's fiscal year 2023 funding bill of $3.63 billion. The alliance is advocating for an increase of $200 million for this year, which is $84 million than the administration's proposal. All right, let us review. Homelessness is on a record pace. America sent $60 billion to another country to fight a war that it can't win. And they're ruling homelessness is so bad that it has reached the Supreme Court. And the Biden administration wants to spend $3 billion or 1/20th on homelessness that is going to spend on getting people in Ukraine exterminated. Just take all the time that you need to process the information I've given you. I mean, to me, this is insanity. But y'all in the comment section, y'all let me know. Is this what you want? Is this representative of what you want? Now, here's the thing. There's one more thing. Because we've been talking about poverty, we've been talking about homelessness and all that. But there's one more thing I want to show you all as far as that affects your money as a tax-paying citizen of America. I just wanted to show you that they're making sure that you are going to pay your money that's going to go to Israel and Ukraine. And they're going to use the best technology they can to make sure that you run them their money, right? So let us pause the music and just check this out, what the IRS is doing.
Today, the House Judiciary Committee holding a hearing on Capitol Hill over artificial intelligence, surveillance, and intellectual property. Joining us now, House Judiciary Committee member, Congresswoman Harriet Hageman. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us. You and the chairman, Jim Jordan, of course, recently opened an inquiry into the IRS using AI to surveil Americans' financial information. What is most concerning to you about these practices?
Thank you for having me. And what we have learned is that the IRS, in fact, has been using AI to access bank accounts of American citizens without any kind of a search warrant or even without any specific claim that they have committed a crime. So this was something that was discovered by an undercover journalist, and what they found is that the IRS has claimed that they have access to every single person's bank account. This person also indicated that they've been working with the Department of Justice and that they have absolutely no problem whatsoever going after the little guy to make sure that they are paying their taxes. This is such a blatant violation of the Fourth Amendment that Jim Jordan and I sent a letter to the IRS demanding that they provide additional information about what they are doing with AI and what they are doing to protect the civil rights of American citizens.
So, Congresswoman, what's the end game here? Because at the end of the day, you can't put the AI genie back in the bottle, and it's so easy to use these technologies in the way that you're suspecting the IRS is. How do you protect American citizens and our constitutional rights?
Well, one of the things is we need a new administration in November, because this administration has been absolutely lawless in terms of its surveillance of us, of members of Congress, of local officials, of people who are protesters, of voters. This administration has completely ignored the Bill of Rights, whether it's the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment. They have weaponized the government against us. So one of the things we have to do is we have to have a new administration come this November. But the other thing that we need to do is have accountability for these federal officials. One of the things that I have introduced with Representative Dan Bishop, and it has actually come out of committee, is the First Amendment Accountability Act. And what we're trying to do is hold federal employees liable for violating the First Amendment rights of American citizens. We already have those rights with regard to the Fourth and Fifth Amendment, but what's crazy is most people don't even realize that the IRS is directly accessing our bank accounts, and they're doing it through AI. The courts need to step in. We need to stop this kind of blatant violation of our constitutional rights. Again, we need a new administration, but we also need to hold these agencies accountable for their violations of the law.
Congresswoman, when you put IRS together with AI, what it tells me is they are definitely coming after people who make way less than $400,000 a year. Is that what you're seeing? Is this a move to get money out of the middle class?
Absolutely it is. And what you're referencing is when they claimed that they needed another 87,000 IRS agents, but they weren't going to target the little guy. They weren't targeting the middle class. They were targeting the wealthy who were not paying their fair share. The gentleman who works for the IRS that exposed the fact that they were using AI specifically stated that they like going after the little guy. They want to go after the little guy because they can't defend themselves. So they're not going after the people who make more than $400,000 a year. They're going after everyone in violation of our Fourth Amendment rights.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for helping us shed light on this issue. We really
Y'all heard her, right? She said they like going after the little guy. All right? Now, what I want to do is, because she mentioned a lot of interesting things. She mentioned the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment. So first of all, let's look at what in the world is the Fourth Amendment. Fourth Amendment. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affiliation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. In the digital era, part of your papers and effects would be your data, your digital data, and things like your bank account, which now is mostly digital, although you can go to an ATM and get actual money. So if the IRS is doing what they're doing and using AI to do it, this is a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment that we have in front of us. Now, she also mentioned violations of the First Amendment. Let us go to the First Amendment. First Amendment: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Right? Now, she says that this current administration is doing that. And I'm not. Oh, sister's like, hey, play the music. Excuse moi, pardon, mademoiselle. She's like, hey, you're gonna tell us this bad news. The least you can do, put some soothing music. There you go. Because that sister is like the #1 supporter right now. So when she asks for the music, I gotta play the music. Now, as I was saying, back to the Bill of Rights. We read the Fourth Amendment, and we go into the First Amendment, which talks about freedom of speech, the press, and the right to peaceably assemble. Right? Now, interestingly enough, let's go here. And it says, U.S. Supreme Court won't review decision that ratchets up the legal risk of protest. Now, as I read this, let me say this. This case is interesting because it involves someone that I do not like. Not even a little bit. Cannot stand. But, and this is how bad I want this person to win this case. However, the actual person who's the plaintiff in this case, I cannot stand at all. I wish nothing good for them other than them winning this case. Nothing at all. If you understand what I'm saying, like nothing. I want to emphasize that. Those of you all who know me know I don't like a lot of people. But then there's the next level. And then there's the level beyond that. And then there's the level y'all never seen. This person is in that area, right? And so y'all gonna be like, bruh, what are you talking about? Like, who is this person that y'all hate, that you hate this much? It says one of the First Amendment's bedrock protections for a free press and a free expression is the rule that an individual lawfully exercising their constitutional rights cannot be held liable for a stranger's uncoordinated decision to break the law nearby. As we have often emphasized, that rule is a critical safeguard for reporters who attend tumultuous events where violence may break out, political rallies, say, or mass demonstrations in order to bring the public the news. But a recent order of the Supreme Court gives reason for concern that the long-standing First Amendment principle may no longer have 5 votes among the justices. You're like, why? The case, McKesson versus Doe, has come before the justices before. In it, a Louisiana law enforcement officer alleges that he was struck by a rock while policing a Black Lives Matter demonstration. Are y'all getting a clue now why I don't like these people? But rather than sue the individual who threw the rock, the officer chose to sue activist D. Ray McKesson. Let's stop right here. For all you all who remember, D. Ray is the dude that used to wear the vest, you know, the rainbow dude that used to wear the vest that's part of Black Lives Matter. He was one of the ones that helped take over the Ferguson movement and got famous where they was up there tweeting what was going on in Ferguson, and they came in and they got all this free money and were getting housing and all this stuff, while the real activists were getting hunted down by the police and assassinated. That D-Ray. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, I can't stand that dude. And nothing about him. Like, I don't like nothing about him. However, in this case, based on the principle as an organizer, I got to root for him to win this case. Because otherwise, anytime you try to organize or do mass protests, if somebody comes up and does something stupid, you're liable for it and you can go to jail. So that's why this case is so important. It's so bad in America that I have to root for people that I cannot stand. This right here, this case shows you that in this day and time, you're going to have some strange political bedfellows. People that you're going to end up rooting for, hate, being in alliances with people temporarily that if they turn their back, don't turn your back on them. Like it's going to get to be like an episode of 24 where it's conspiracies inside of conspiracies. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, in this case, is a case you kind of want him to win, because if he loses and it becomes precedent, then again, hold up, where's our Bill of Rights? Bring our Bill of Rights back up. Amendment 1 will be trashed. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion, that's not the part we're worried about, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, and abridging the freedom of speech, of the press, the right of the people to peaceably assemble. You cannot peaceably assemble if you have to be responsible for the actions of every single person at your rally. All right, you have a political rally, or you have a protest against Israel, which a lot of people are having right now, or you have a protest against them bringing them weird books into your school district, or as we have to do seemingly every summer, protest the police just randomly blowing away one of our children, or whatever the case may be. In fact, this is what's crazy. I just thought about this. Literally, you could be a presidential candidate having a rally and someone does something illegal, and the presidential candidate can be arrested. You see how slippery this slope is? So in this case, even though I cannot stand this dude, this case is huge. Now, says under the court's 1982 decision in NAACP versus Claiborne Hardware that should have made for an easy case, before you can be held liable for another person's decision to break the law at a demonstration, the First Amendment requires proof that you authorized, directed, or ratified the stranger's violent conduct. By insisting on that evidence of bad intent, the Constitution provides breathing room for lawful news gathering and expression, ensuring that journalists can go about their jobs at chaotic events without fear that a third party unlawful conduct will be imputed to them. Remarkably, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit allowed Doe's lawsuit to go forward regardless, even though Doe never alleged that McKesson intended his injury. On that theory, that McKesson was negligent as to the risk that the protests would turn violent, as the Reporters Committee Gabe Rottman wrote in a 2018 op-ed in the Washington Post. A similar theory was put to dangerous but ultimately unsuccessful use against journalists in connection with the protests against Donald Trump's presidential inauguration in 2017. In 2020, In response to a previous bid by McKesson to have the Supreme Court hear the case, the justices issued an unsigned order that ordered that the Fifth Circuit to ask the Louisiana Supreme Court to clarify whether state tort law permitted Doe's lawsuit before wading into the question. But basically, they just tried to send this back to them again, wading into a question fraught with implications for First Amendment rights. But when the Louisiana Supreme Court answered that state law did in fact provide Doe with the grist for a lawsuit, the Fifth Circuit reinstated its conclusion that the First Amendment offered no defense. McKesson then turned to the Supreme Court again. The justices weighed the case at 7 conferences before weighing in, often a sign that some sort of behind-the-scenes haggling is afoot. Last week, the court ultimately declined to review the case, accompanied by a short statement from Justice Sonia Sotomayor. In carefully neutral language, Sotomayor noted that the Fifth Circuit's opinion did not have the benefit of the court's 2023 decision in Counterman versus Colorado, which reiterated the role that strict intent requirements play in providing breathing room for First Amendment freedoms. McKesson, she suggested, will still have an opportunity to argue to the Fifth Circuit that it should now revisit its early decisions in light of the Counterman case. There may be then a narrow path forward for McKesson, but an unnerving development all the same that the court couldn't assemble a majority to reverse the Fifth Circuit outright. The outcome Sotomayor may well have spent those weeks trying to build support for. At a time when the prospect of significant protest activity once again ratchets up the legal risk facing journalists who cover civic unrest, the court cannot afford to blink on core First Amendment protections. Now, he's just saying that as a journalist. I'm saying that as, anybody that's an activist that goes out here and organizes and rallies the people are subject to whatever. In fact, it doesn't have to be people. The old, and somebody else pointed this out. You could do the old, what did they call it? Agent provocateur. You do the old agent provocateur thing. They send somebody to your rally. You have a bunch of people. Somebody throws a rock or sets something on fire or whatever the case, which happens a lot. And then all of a sudden, the leaders and the organizers of the event are arrested. So again, this is a major thing because we know if nobody else pays attention to this stuff, we know Black people have to pay attention, because here's the reality of the situation. When summertime rolls around, some of our people are going to be murdered by the police. We're going to be angry. We're going to protest. There may be other things that take place that happen that we'll be angry and we protest too. And then at that point, if we continue down this road, it just makes it that much easier. And then here's my message to people who aren't Black. If that continues to happen to us and we're arrested and held accountable for actions of other people, when you try to organize against being taxed or whatever else that y'all get mad about, because this summer, hopefully I'm wrong, it's looking like it's gonna be hot. Get mad about Israel, or mad about just them sending money all over the place, or mad about them not defending the border, or mad about squatters coming in and taking over your place. When you get angry and you want to protest, I'm talking to non-Black people, if you allow this to happen to Black people, it's coming to your doorstep. Those chickens are gonna come home to roost on you, because you are allowing the United States government to violate the First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, and the Eighth Amendment. And to be completely honest, before Black tried to raw ice of White House, the American people as a whole have been asleep at the wheel, because how long ago was Edward Snowden telling us about digital surveillance? And how long they just re-upped the Pfizer thing for the wireless wiretaps thing, and the Pfizer court and all that stuff that came around during the Patriot Act. Like, what has to happen for people to realize that literally, as we go down the list of, as we go down the list of rights that are being under attack. First Amendment under attack. Let's look at the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Every time there's a mass shooting, Second Amendment comes under attack. Third Amendment, no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner prescribed by law. I'm just saying, we need to read that, because you never know when that's going to be under attack. Right. Random martial law, and then all of a sudden, Third Amendment goes out the window. We talked about the Fourth Amendment, right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, effects against unlawful, unreasonable search and seizure. Well, that's gone out the window because the IRS is out here just peeking at everybody's bank account. So that's just over. I mean, we don't even have to talk about that. One of the few things that's still in place is the Fifth Amendment. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. Here's the thing with that. What they always say about America, that a prosecutor can indict a ham sandwich. So even though that's still in place, ain't protecting nobody. Almost anyone can get indicted. But as we see, while our money and our resources, and I'm saying our because all of us pay taxes. The funny thing about them talking about tax evasion, like you pay the taxes for those who work, the working class people. The taxes leave, you never even see the money, right? They take the taxes from the jump. So those people, your money is literally going to pay. You're paying to have your rights in the Bill of Rights be restricted by the government that you may or may not have voted for. While they send your money to Ukraine and they tell you that if you fall on hard times and you're homeless, you can't sleep outside. And by the way, if you want to protest the fact that you can't sleep outside, you could be held liable for what somebody else does while you're protesting, while the president gives 1/20th to poor people what he gives to a so-called ally that's fighting a war that they cannot win. This is the bizarro world that we currently live in. And to just show you how bad it is, because the President Biden and his people are going to spin you on how good the economy is going and unemployment is low and yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. We got one more article to go. It says, study, more than 8 billion Americans work multiple jobs that make ends meet. Says, if the economy has you working or thinking about working a part-time gig to help make ends meet, you're not alone. The U.S. Labor Department just announced that a number of people working for a second job has reached a post-pandemic high of 8.4 million. That's about 6% of all women in the workplace and about 4.7% of all men. More people are using remote work skills for added income. It is helpful and it keeps me busy, said Ariana Godoy, who works 3 jobs. Now, how many people remember In Living Color? Remember the In Living Color joke about the Jamaican? He worked 10 jobs. He the mailman, he the this, he the this, the that, and blah, blah, blah. And it was funny, right? You're like, oh, wow, that ha, ha, ha. Yes, Jamaicans work hard, the immigrants work hard. Now this is standard America, right? Because again, remember what I said. All of the data is lying. Is undersold. They say it's 6%. That's 1 in 16 people. There's probably 10% of people that would, if they could find a second job that didn't interfere with their first job. And then there's probably another 10% of people who were already doing it and decided they can't do it no more. They done burnt themselves out. Because I've worked with people who, like, literally, when their shift ends, they're going to their car to drive Uber. Like, they just changing their shoes. You know what I'm saying? To have some more comfortable shoes to drive it, right? Or, you know, I mean, you have people that, like, you have like weird stuff where people work a job where they make a decent amount of money, but then their second job is like at a pizza shop or something, you know, something that's, you're like, that's not even worth working, but that little bit of money can be the difference between where you live and being in a damn encampment or living in your car. This is the Biden economy, and nobody is talking about it. She said, I'm an insurance agent, an Uber driver, and I do eyelash extensions. And I feel like I can be a little more flexible when it comes to doing things like going out to eat and travel. So basically what she's saying is, I need 3 jobs just so I can have some income to be able to do something that's enjoyable so that I don't go insane with these 3 jobs. This is crazy. Look, you should not have to work multiple jobs to burn yourself out so you can afford to do something leisurely to take your mind off the fact that you work 3 jobs to burn yourself out. Like this is not how this thing is supposed to work. And I just, maybe people don't talk about it because 1, they're too busy working, right? And 2, nobody wants to talk about their financial situation, so people don't talk to each other about how crazy it is that they working 2, 3, 4, 5. Like this woman has 3 jobs. This is not, come on, man. This is not the American dream. Working yourself to death. I saw another article talking about people in their 60s coming back to work. That's not the American dream. Working 3 or 4 jobs, that's not the American dream. That's the American nightmare. And if non-black people are in that situation, we already know what type of situation black people are in. This is the insanity that's going on. And as we said, the title is, they got money for war, but can't feed the poor. Who is the poor? The poor at this point is the vast majority of people. Because everybody is a sneeze away. A good 60% of the U.S. population is a sneeze away from being homeless. You miss 3 days on your job, it's over. And meanwhile, they send $100 million overseas to random people and can't do it, and just won't do anything about the southern border. That ain't even worth talking about no more. So we just have to accept and come to the conclusion that they're not going to do anything about it. But they will send your children over there to defend Israel and to get blown up by Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis, and see how long the list of enemies gets. So your son or daughter wants to go to the military because at least they know they have what? Some way to live and some money. And then you go over there and you're sleeping in your barracks, and then a missile comes and blows you up, blows your son up, or blows your daughter up, because all they wanted to do was to be able to survive. Look, I'm gonna speak to non-black people here. Things are out of control. Voting is not going to fix them. Let's go through the list. Let's start with the 21st century. As I showed on my last show, when a Republican president was in office, the United States was attacked, and people who are Israeli were seen celebrating. They then began to initiate a plan to destroy 7 countries in the Middle East. That continued under a Democratic president. The warrantless wiretaps and all that stuff that started with the Patriot Act, which was written by a small hat, continued and has not been reversed, whether we vote for the second Bush, 2 terms of Obama, 1 term of Trump, and another term of Biden, which is just Obama, which is just Clinton. The 2-party duopoly is not working for anyone. Black, white, Hispanic, unless you just came across the border, Asian. I mean, we see it's not working for Asian. They had the largest jump in homelessness. Supreme Court can't decide whether or not they want to defend the Bill of Rights. Congress is totally captured by AIPAC. Biden's a Zionist. The entire executive branch is Zionist. The country has totally been taken over. Nothing's being done to benefit the people. And all it takes is for one little thing to happen, and everybody's gonna blame black people. But we're not in charge. We suffering more than everybody, as usual. But we're the ones that's gonna call out the nonsense, because don't nobody else want to call it out and call it what it is. You got a hat problem. Dr. Cynthia McKinney was the one that called it out. You got a hat problem. You know how, you ever had an exterminator come in your house and you look around and you check under some shelves and stuff, and he tell you got rodents. Same thing. Black people telling you, hey, you got a hat problem, buddy. Country's been taken over. Hate to tell you. And your rights are being destroyed right in front of you, and you can't depend on any branch of your government to defend your rights. This is where we are. Got money for war, but can't feed the poor. And more people are joining the poor, and if they're not joining the poor, they're doing like this poor woman and working 3 and 4 jobs. So they can afford to be able to take off from one of their jobs and gain some sanity by traveling. And then you'll see her on Instagram and you'll think everything is good. She won't show you the 4 jobs she's working. She'll just show you the vacation that she's taking. And everybody will think that everything is all right. And this is how things are supposed to work. And in reality, it's complete and utter insanity. And the country is going down the toilet and being sold out from under everyone by the people in charge that people vote for to allegedly solve problems, but they haven't solved any problems in the 21st century that I have seen. So this message was strictly for Americans. And if there's any people outside of America who are wondering what's going on and want to know what in the world is happening in America, well, I'm going to say this. America is not collapsing. It's being collapsed. And those who are in America who say they're Americans, regardless of race, if you want to be an American, you're going to have to fight for it. You ain't going to be able to vote your way out of this one. And as things go on, you ain't going to be able to protest your way out of this one either, the way things are looking. You ain't even going to be able to spend money your way out of this one, because the IRS, if they can look into your account, they can steal your money too. As I've heard other people say, the walls are closing in. And by the way, don't forget, there's an Agenda 2030 that the quote-unquote elite have been talking about for years. It's 2024 and a half. We not far off from that 2030. Times are ticking. So with that, brothers and sisters, friends and enemies, I thank you all for listening. I thank you all for watching. I said the numbers are going up, so I thank you all for that. For the new subscribers, you can follow me on Instagram at dc.radical1, Twitter at dcradical_ONE, OTW2, DC Radical 1, all one word. If you would like to donate, you find value in this information. The Cash App is $DC Radical 1. Of course, this is the YouTube, and you can email me at dc.radical_1 at protonmail.com. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The plan is to be here Saturday night with some interesting, intelligent, and attractive young ladies. I don't know if I'm coming on before then, but if not, I'll see you Saturday. With that, I say a BB48 and straight black. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also follow us on our other social media platforms. On Instagram, we're at dc.radical1. On Twitter, we're at dc_radical_ONE. And the Cash App is $DC Radical 1. Again, thank you for subscribing. A BB for ODA and straight black pride.